Hey, what is up, everybody? Hunter here, back with another great conversation. This time with Chris and Tyler from Good Vibes Club. It's a NFT project launching on Abstract, 3D, all surrounded around the idea of IP and telling stories with the characters. Um, Look, I'd say it time and time again. I bring on people that I think are doing amazing things and leading their categories. This time, two brothers that are leading the 3D modeling vertical because I think that they took all the time in the world, 3 years actually to be specific, to come up with this collection and come up with the most curated collection that they could while also being generated. You'll find that they are backed by SuperRare, which is one of the leading, if not the leading, marketplace for high-end digital art, and they have extensive, very extensive background in the animation and 3D world, having done projects with leading companies such as Facebook and Reddit, and I think the list goes on pretty deeply. Um, but if you are looking to find out about a new project that is building on Abstract and find out about a new project that is launching very shortly here, this is a great episode. And I think you'll learn a lot about the artistic side of things, which, I don't think we put enough emphasis on. The emotions, the nerves, getting it right, the right taste, to making a cohesive collection. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. As always, thank you to our sponsors for making this possible, Future Proof and 555. And I hope you not only enjoy this, but can take something away from it. And if you have questions, comments, as always, reach out to me and leave some feedback. It's very helpful. So sit back, enjoy, and it's a great conversation. I love doing these types of interviews because there's this kind of aura of mystery that surrounds when before a project mints, and especially when there's uh an angle of like, well, we haven't seen this approach before, we haven't seen this dedication to the finer details on a 3D project, and we know that's really hard to do. And after talking to you guys, I totally get it. But today we're joined with Good Vibes Club, two brothers that are absolutely crushing it, in my opinion. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell us what Good Vibes Club is all about, and then we'll get into why you guys are here, why I like you, etc. Let's start. I'm all over the place today.
Dude, I know the feeling. I'll try to keep the intro a little bit short. So my name's Chris, and this is my brother Ty. We started an animation studio together maybe like 6 years ago. Have kind of been doing like the commercial animation thing for like the last 15 years. So it's been quite a long time. And yeah, and we've been really kind of just invested in like building up the brands of Web2. We've been fortunate to build them like Google and Facebook, yada yada, those kind of bigger names. And throughout that time, we've also constantly worked on our own craft and basically our own artwork that we really love. And now it's sort of transitioning into us developing our own IP, which is Good Vibes Club. In terms of like the nitty gritty, I am like the art guy, and Ty here is sort of the business and operations guy, for Good Vibes Club and all things of that nature. But yeah, I'll let Ty kind of give a little, take it from here.
Yep. Yeah. No. Thank you. And first of all, thank you, Hunter, for having us on. This is super fun. We're definitely stoked. So Chris and I, like you said, have been working together for many years on the commercial side, and Good Vibes Club is our own IP that we've been working on for about 3 years now in partnership with SuperRare. And we're going to be launching on Abstract, which we just announced yesterday. So a lot of exciting stuff that is coming up for us. And yeah, we're stoked to kind of chat a little bit more about Good Vibes Club and what we've been working on.
You guys, it's hard. This is the most visual project. It's hard. I'll pull it up in a second here, but walk me through, for the people that don't understand, 3D versus 2D. What is the pipeline from going from idea on a piece of paper to the final rendering that you see in a profile photo?
It's a great question. So it's kind of intense. Like there's really a lot that goes into it. So 3D, it's pretty technical. So you kind of start with like, imagine just starting with a cube, and then you take that cube and you kind of model it into a shape. And then that shape then becomes like a form that you can put lights around and sort of light. And then once you do that, you can kind of add textures in that are a whole nother sort of ball game. So the real sort of, I guess, like difference between 3D and 2D is imagine taking clay and being like a sculptor, but then having complete control of the world around it, like the textures, the lights, you know, the environment, and how it kind of feels. Like maybe there's like a gold material that has a lot of shine, and then there's like another material that's very matte, and kind of having those things contrast are really, really cool and really important. So basically, like that process of kind of building world building, it's kind of similar to like gaming, where you're like immersed in like this whole sort of world, right? And so I guess in terms of the difference between 2D and 3D, one of the big things with Good Vibes Club, and the reason why it did take 3 years, was because we were really focused on doing it all sort of within the 3D software. We wanted to build each character fully within camera, because when you are rendering the lights and when you're rendering, you know, the textures and the color and whatnot, having those things all happen at once versus them being exported individually and then combined later makes a huge difference, right? So imagine like a bubble. Yeah, like imagine like a bubble that is floating in front of like your face. What you see behind that bubble being like the actual character versus like a generic sort of reflection makes a really big difference to the final quality
It's more
and feel of
immersive.
the artwork.
It's way more immersive. And I've been lucky to, through the gaming side of things, as well as a lot of other portfolio companies that I have in my portfolio, actually get like the behind the scenes walkthrough of like, okay, walk me through actually like what is your pipeline to getting this out. And you can tell like there are, and for good reasons, I think there are teams that take shortcuts to, and I think the bubble's a good one. That reflection, that refraction through the visualization of a bubble is very, very hard to do. And for a lot of people, it's like, all right, well, we could just render in the bubble, do the generic reflection, and 99% of the people won't tell. But if you're trying to achieve like the upper echelon of fine art within the 3D space, you have to put in that extra effort. And that leads to 3 years of work, which clearly we found that out. You know,
and it was like one of those things where it was like we had to it was not only difficult, we had to build like our own fully custom pipeline for it. So like doing it in an easy way didn't exist. Really doing it at all didn't exist. And really huge shout out to our dev Burke. Hopefully he's watching. He's a good buddy of mine. He like is the software sort of like super smart, you know, really great with code. And he built this whole pipeline that enabled us to build like all these rules for each trait and make sure that certain traits only match with other traits, because sometimes they collide, right? You don't want glasses in a bubble kind of going over one another. And so, yeah, so here's G Money's honorary, super fun one.
Yeah, I mean, I just need to pull it up because again, it's a very visual project, and it's crazy because I spent a lot of time looking through these, and the texture, as you're talking about, you can mold these down, but the actual like fibers, it's like the immersiveness of what are the actual textures, the colors. Can you blend those all together? Does it look like the jacket will actually, like, if he were to move, would that jacket move like a normal jacket? I mean, you guys have a ton of background in animation, which like we could talk about the actual like modeling side of things in depth, but then there's the actual, okay, how are they reacting to movement, the physics of it, the weight, there's a million things in here. And my background has not touched into the animation side enough. I've spent thousands of hours within CAD modeling software, so I get how hard this is to do in a realistic way. But the animation side is like a whole nother, like, I mean, that's the NFL of of 3D modeling, to me at least.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I mean, it's not an easy task. So you kind of have to take this and then, imagine like adding like rigging and weighting to like a full 3D character. And then when you're going into actually making that character move, like just sort of getting the bones and like making sure that if you make the arm move up, that it actually moves correctly is a whole sort of process, a very difficult one. And then from beyond that, like making sure that they move with personality, like the actual like keyframing of like a hand animation, like going like that, and the easing in terms of like how the motion is, rather than, if like, imagine you had a sphere and it was just sort of bouncing, like basically how that bounces and how that moves. It's just pretty technical, I guess. And
Right.
We have spent a lot of time kind of diving into that to be able to give that sort of technical element, like it really utilize the technical sort of side of things to drive personality and to drive vision and artistic voice. And so that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah. For a 2D collection, you basically you create a bunch of different traits and you render them all out on alpha, and then you combine everything together in post. And so to do it in 3D, like on the commercial side, with our commercial animation business, like everything we do is a longer production cycle. It's usually like a higher quality project with a bigger brand. And so to do something like this, building a collection or an IP in 3D, we wanted to take that quality approach. And for us, what quality represents in terms of like a collection means that all the rendering is done in camera to preserve all the fidelity, the light and GI bounce, etc. And so 3 years is a long time to work on anything. And for a PFP collection like this, and really the foundation of our IP, it was really like kind of shortlisted down to 3 different sort of phases of the project. I would say like the first year was spent like hand sculpting over 700 traits in 3D. So like, imagine taking that cube, like Chris mentioned, and like sculpting it down into like jackets and all the base, geometries of the collection. And then the second year was really about like, how do we like up level the detail and fidelity and really make it feel branded and polished and, high quality. And so that's when like the team did like over 100 hand drawn textures and mapped them to all the clothing and pins and patches and all sorts of stuff. And then the third year was really, building that pipeline to do all of the generative pairing in C4D, which is our software. And that's when, Burke built the custom plugin, and we really had to build I think Chris might be underselling how much work it was. Like we built an entirely like custom pipeline just to do this. And so the curation alone was, a year, because, we can get into all the different details of it, but to do a collection at scale to the quality that we weren't willing to sacrifice was what, took us so long. And it was almost a blessing that we had the time to really just sink our teeth into it and really make it, what it is.
Yeah. A lot of this is over my head because I've never gone through that like process of building a 3D collection. I have my own 2D collection, and that's just generative art, and it's an algo. And I know that there were nights where I was up till 4 a.m. ready to punch my screen. And like, you can look at the art and you're like, well, that probably wasn't that hard. You look at this, and you're like, well, that was definitely hard. So you have to only imagine how, like, the littlest things that, again, nobody's going to notice, or it's hard to understand that they'll notice, but it takes a lot of effort to get that right. Can you talk through with Toast TV? Because we just had the site up, and you guys have done some amazing work in the past. Can you just walk through like what is Toast.tv, who you've worked with, how you've gotten to this point in your career? Because I think that also shows you guys aren't just these two guys who are like, hey, NFTs came up, let's do a 3D project.
Totally. Yeah. So we kind of started, in this sort of professional journey a long time ago. And it really goes back to me, like, I don't know, maybe like 12 years ago or something, kind of moving to New York, working as an artist, as a freelancer alongside like really all the best in the world. I grew up in the Midwest, but I wanted to kind of move to either coast, either LA or New York, because at the time that's where all the best artists were. And so moving to New York was like the beginning of like my journey as an artist. And it's where I got to rub shoulders with, the managing director of Golden Wolf. We worked together at my first job in New York. Her name's Dottie. She's amazing. My really, really close friend, DK, everybody knows DK. Obviously he's a superstar. He's fantastic. We worked together at Buck back in the day on really cool projects. And then kind of through that process of like working alongside the best in like a freelance sort of setting, we were then able to kind of like take all of that knowledge and all of that sort of experience of working for like Apple and Google and whatever all the time for years, and then sort of start our own studio. And it's kind of been cool because the art sort of side has really been my domain, and us being brothers, it just was really like, I guess it just was happenstance that our skill sets were so complementary. Like Ty, I'll let him kind of get into his history in a second, but his background is extremely complementary to mine in business and community and like operations, and mine is like creative and almost like the product, right? Like the actual nerdy nitty gritty side of like keyframing and the art and making those things feel premium. But yeah, maybe do you want to share a little bit about your background, Ty?
Yeah, for sure. I was an early employee at Reddit, and I was there during like a time of hyper growth, and I started actually on the community team there, but I had several roles while I was there. And towards the end, I was the first person on the crypto team there, which, our team built what we now know as the avatars and whatnot. So I was a product manager there. And then, at the time, like, I'm Chris's brother. I've been over his shoulder watching him work on the box like my whole life. And so I understand like the process of what goes into creating art just from that alone. And so it just felt like we had for years talked about like, hey, we want to start a studio together. We know we have complementary skill sets. And so Toast was essentially that, where, I left Reddit to start Toast with Chris. And, we've been really fortunate over the last 6 years to have, some amazing clients and work on some, really amazing stuff. Like we worked, you've actually probably seen our art and not even known it. Like if you use Reddit at all, we did like the foundation for their rebrand for it. We did the rebrand for Facebook Messenger as well back in 21. And so we do a lot of work with Google and other folks like that. And so it's been really amazing, like to be on this journey of helping these like really established brands sort of develop their IP as, the market changes and to stay relevant with art and whatnot as a 3D animation studio. And Good Vibes Club is essentially like us, building our own brand.
Yeah.
And, 3 years to work on the collection itself, but it's more than just the 3D PFP collection. It's really the foundation of an IP. And so that's kind of like how Chris and I came to start Toast and how we've, arrived at where we're at now.
Do you guys think as brothers working together, and I have the privilege of also having a brother that I work with, and I've talked to Gary V and AJV in depth about this as well. Do you think being brothers and being in business together is a cheat code that nobody else can compete with?
Yeah, for sure.
100%. Like I know what's going to come out of Chris's mouth before he even says it. And when we get on a call with clients, like it's just the perfect yin and yang combo. Like, I know his skill set, like he's like an art savant. And so I just try to unblock the world around Chris to let him do that. But the way, like we're best friends, we talk all day, every day as it is. And working together only amplifies that, which is really fun.
Yeah, I can't echo that enough on my end of things. Just it's powerful. There's a connection there that you just won't have with another person, even if they're like a long like childhood friend. Like they're not blood, they're not family.
Right. Totally.
Which I love. I think that's also like part of why I vibe with you guys is you can tell it's just there and it gives off like a good vibe. There,
Dude,
boom, plug it.
Let's go, dude. Absolutely, man. I mean, that's kind of what it's about. Like, yeah, we absolutely love the art, and like I've devoted like a long time to being really technical and trying to like really be able to execute at the highest possible level because like I just love creating. But like at the end of the day, it's also about like, what are you creating? Like, what are you building? Like we've spent so much time. There's a big difference between art and design. And I talk about this a lot. Like art is what you do from a place of passion and joy and like inner creation. It's what you do because you want to. Design is what you do for clients when you're using those skill sets that you develop in those like really great moments of like, oh, I'm making this awesome thing and I'm staying up till 2 a.m. because I'm stoked. Like when you're developing that skill, doing that, you take that and then you can, work on like logos for Facebook or, icons for Reddit or whatnot. And so the difference between art and design is this cool sort of dichotomy where like now when we're working on our own stuff, especially GVC, it's like art and it's just fun. And it's like what you want to work on. Like I'm constantly kind of, staying up late, jamming on, listening to funk music, jamming on my computer, chatting in Discord and like, modeling out like necklaces or little glasses or whatnot, just because it's fun and it's like enjoyable. And so yeah, I mean, I'm kind of I won't tangent too long, but I love that idea of like, we are sort of in this ethos and building this world of GVC because we love it, because it's what we want to do. It's why you become an artist. And then like the design side of things is really cool too, because it's how you can, historically within Web 2 kind of fund your life. And so being able to kind of like lean into that and sort of like have that experience has been awesome.
Yeah, I can see the entire story and how this all kind of comes together. Let's dive into, I guess, more on the detailed side of GVC, which is you guys have announced yesterday or the day before that you'll be on Abstract. And I know that took some time. You guys went back and forth on a few things, but you've landed on Abstract. I personally, I think that's a great decision. But can you explain why abstract in your own words, and what the future looks like on abstract?
Yeah, totally. I think it kind of like stems back to, my previous life before Toast. I mean, when you're building consumer product at a large B2C company like Reddit, it's really tough to do so. And when we were trying to find an ERC20 use case at Reddit, like we wanted it to be like the underlying sort of how a core product feature is powered, where people don't even feel that like friction of the user experience. And I used to talk about it with my team all the time that like the biggest obstacle for mass adoption for crypto is the friction in the learning curve in the user experience. And so what Abstract is building around consumer crypto and making it easier for folks to onboard into Web3 is really the perfect fit for an IP project like ours. Because like if you think about, how do you grow an IP? Obviously, you have your community and that's your foundation in Web3, but a lot of that growth in Web 2 honestly feeds back into Web 3. And I think what Luca has done, I mean, his stream was incredible. Like what he has done in order to like look at, hey, how do we create value for our holders outside of Web 3 back in Web 2 to basically grow the IP is perfect. And so the ecosystem that they're standing up is incredible. What we're able to do with what they're building in terms of their product is going to be awesome. There's you're going to be streaming, Chris is going to be streaming, I'm sure. And so we're just super excited. It feels like the perfect marriage of being an IP-based project, going to and building on a place where that is really setting us up for success as founders.
Yeah, on the IP side, when we were originally talking, I was like losing my mind over all the different ways, because I mean, look, they're cute, they are 3D, which you don't see a lot of other projects doing because of how hard it is to do well. And I think Luca, when I got off that interview I did with him, I was so jazzed up because I was like, anybody who wants to sell plushies, anybody who wants to sell merch, anybody who wants to figure out short animations, who like they are going to thrive on abstract. And I kept thinking about you guys, and I was like, yeah, like they've made the right choice. They're going the right direction. I'm totally fucking on vibe with that.
I love it, man.
100%, dude.
You have to have the right partners. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up, is they don't think long enough down the line of, okay, where are we headed? What are we trying to achieve? And they're like, okay, where's the attention just right now? You could have gone and done this on Solana. And, I know the NFT market there isn't hot, but, good art on Solana, drop this and then do a meme coin next to it. And you guys could have been like, okay, cool, there's a couple million, peace out. But you're thinking long term, and it's clear.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, we spent 6 years building a commercial animation studio, and it's had great success. And we're thinking long term, absolutely. And building an IP and what we're able to do back in Web 2 with it is how we're framing this whole thing. And so it's really perfect for us. And we're super excited. And all those guys, like, they're absolute weapons. Like they're a really strong team. And so we just love getting to know like Mason and Finn and all the folks over there. It's been awesome.
Do you think that there's the cheat code on growth of IP right now is like targeting the Web 2 audience and figuring out how to like get them to like and care, instead of trying to be the biggest within Web 3? Like that's obviously a much larger pool of people, and you can tell that that's where Pudgy's headed and how they're approaching abstract. Do you agree with that? And you think that's the right way to go as a project right now?
100%. I feel like that's sort of one of the main, I guess, one of the really, really, really standout sort of pieces about Pudgy that I really loved was their ability to do that in such an awesome way. Kind of like branching out from where we are now and really like activating the Web 2 space and really trying to onboard and everything. It's just like the ethos is perfectly aligned, because we're not just building like 3D avatars. Like, yes, they're extremely high quality and crafted with like utmost detail and whatnot, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is like an ethos, a brand, something that people can connect with. And how does that happen? Well, it happens through animation, it happens through storytelling, it happens through engagement. Like in the Web 2 side of things, it happens through like people seeing your characters and having an emotional connection. And so I think that being able to execute on like the high level at like a fine art scale, and then kind of bringing that to like the ethos of, hey, we're just trying to spread this message that is like, we're trying to preach the good vibes in a way, I think is really, really strong. It's really, really compelling. I mean, it's really natural because it's not like a marketing tactic. It's just what we love. Like a lot of the lore and influence for Good Vibes Club really came from living where we do. Like, imagine if I tell people this all the time. Imagine if like New York and, you know, a Caribbean island, Puerto Rico, had like a baby, and then there was like a surf town, and it was just like sunny, and it was like freaking dope. Like, dude, that's where I'm at in my head when I'm making this stuff. And, you know, when there's like a vibe foot dude like riding on a Harley, hitting the shaka, like, dude, that is I feel something when I'm making that, and I'm just trying to share it with people. And so
you can tell it's throughout the entire collection when you leak the, like, you can tell that is in your head when you're making this stuff.
Yeah,
That's so
and that's kind of the goal, to kind of reach those audiences and to kind of just like, if we can have people look at the art and feel like happy and like smile, like that's at the end of the day, like, you know, a huge success in my opinion. And if we can do that at a massive scale through the ability to execute at a high level, that's kind of our playbook. And I'm really stoked on that.
Yeah, I think you guys have nailed it on that, in my opinion. I keep coming back to the art, like even just this animation showing you know, the different textures, the different modeling, the different lighting. I mean, even like the fur on that movement there, it's crazy. There are good vibes everywhere you look, on every little piece of content you put out. I'm not sure where it is. You guys shared a document with me at one point that was like it walked you through everything that you guys were approaching. It had some like really good breakdowns of like the art and the color choices. Was, I mean, that was a multi-month process just figuring out
Yeah.
palettes. And also don't think a lot of people get that. Like when you're building a project, one that I think got it really right was doodles across the entire collection. If you were to put all 10,000 on a piece of paper, you were like, okay, this is a homogenous collection and nothing looks out of place. There are there are others that did not get that right. Chromie Squiggles, yeah, they got it right. It's very homogenous, and you can tell when you look at it, it's part of a collection. These, you guys took the time with different lighting, different reflections, and especially because this is generated, making sure that there were no clashes of contrast or color. Can you just walk me through that a little bit more? Okay, yeah, and I can pull up the tab as well here.
It's kind of difficult to articulate because there's so many layers to it. Like, I guess as an artist, this is what this was, and this dawned on me very early. This is creating a design system, which means imagine like your brand has like a bunch of rules, like your logo can't be on this color or whatnot. Now take that, multiply it by like 1,000,000, and then apply like a design rule set to every single trait, how every single trait works with another trait and whether or not it intersects. And then take that and then wrap that into all these different color groupings. It's just a lot to talk about. So I'm not going to like crazy ramble, but in terms of the color itself, color is something that I'm obsessed with. It's probably something that, you know, commercially me and Ty have fought over the most. It's like, I want to make everything pink, purple, mint, you know, like vibrant, like pastel. And he's like, the client's, it's Facebook and it's blue. And I'm like, but what if it wasn't, you know? So
yeah, we fight about that.
Yeah, so
sometimes.
to kind of like take it to the color place, like we wanted to be really intentional with curation. This is like a massively curated effort. We probably spent a year. There was over 25,000 images rendered. And the purpose of those was so that we could make these rule sets and curate it. And so the thinking behind the color is like, when I was kind of doing the first initial sort of testing, there wasn't any rules, and it was just like everything kind of thrown into a mixer. And imagine if you were to take like all the colors together and mix them, it just turns like mud. And that's kind of the best metaphor I can use, because it feels like that too, unless you curate it and unless you're intentional and unless you're trying to kind of make these combinations have like elicit a certain emotion. And
Right.
so when it comes to it, it's like, man, I don't want to see like a pink hat, orange skin, green, you know, rings, or like whatever. I guess you can't see the hands, but like you don't want like too wide of a range. And so a lot of the theory in terms of like the nerdy side of things from the color was having restrictive palettes that allow for randomness within a very, very fine set of curated rules. So that's kind of the thinking, and that's why the groups are so restrictive in their nature and their color.
Well, imagine imagine like a frame counter from like 1 to like 1,000, where you in your C40 file, in your 3D programming, all the generative pairing is done, and it basically spits out a new version on frame 1, then frame 2, frame 3, frame 4. And so that's essentially how the collection work, the pipeline that we built works. But the collection itself is really split up into 12 different color groupings, and each one is like has that cohesion that Chris was mentioning. That includes like the base ones, and then also some of the more rare subsets of like how we treat color. Like there's like a rainbow glass one, which is in like the cycle animations on this page. So we wanted to like make sure that we're curating like all the batches and what we render by color. Also on the trait level, like all traits have like their own exclusion list or whatever, but like color is where Chris spent a lot of time like just running a render batch, and each batch takes over a day. So it's not like these are like quick, to do. They're heavy scenes with like a lot of detail and meat to them. And we ran like so many different renders. It was pretty crazy, honestly.
And some of the other rules, like there's just so many rules. I just want to throw in a couple nuggets. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. No, please dump all the alpha and the secrets to your success on the show, because I want that. I want that.
Dude, like, so there's also all these rules, like hats can't match with non-matching colored body clothing. So basically you're always going to have a pink helmet with a pink, suit or body or whatever, or like a gold, fedora, not fedora, there's no fedoras, a gold like wide brim hat maybe with, like golden chain, tattoo, sparkle dude. And so the intention was to create these rules where there's a balance between randomness and curation, because that's kind of when things feel really, really good. And I think that the reason we're able to do that is because we do have so many traits and we spent so much time, so that we're able to kind of make sure like, okay, if it's so restrictive, how do you still have diversity? Which is a really important question, especially when you're designing a system. And I think the answer to that is a high number of like frequency of traits. And so having the traits, having those rules, it creates like a unique feel. And so, just kind of like looking at some of the characters that I have kind of pulled up here, like having that kind of hat matching clothing option is really great. But then if it feels too homogenous, all the hair colors are like, they don't have that and they don't follow that. So you could have, a red afro with like a pink tank top, or maybe like a mint bowl cut with like, like a blue fur coat or something. And so like, there's like a balance. And as we were doing that process, it was
Chris,
balancing that.
I think like it kind of goes back to what we were talking about very early on, that like we wanted, quality is the name of the game. That's the denominator for everything. Like we wanted every piece to feel like it had the like attention to detail as a one-on-one does, which is why the SuperRare partnership makes so much sense, is because, we wanted to essentially create like a new category of art. Like it's like fine, like high-end art at scale. And so there's no way to do that without, making tons of traits, working on it for years, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I just kind of wanted to mention that, because it was kind of like this overlying theme throughout the entire 3 years that we were working on this, that like we would constantly talk about, is that like each piece, even the floor ones, need to feel so sick that like they're handled with this like the same amount of care as a one-of-one would.
Yeah, you can tell. And I think the line there that stuck out was curated randomness. I mean, that's what I think leads to a good collection. I don't think I've ever thought those two words together, but it totally makes sense when you hear them. Let's not gloss over SuperRare. SuperRare, in my opinion, is one of the leading marketplaces for fine art in the entire crypto space, and NFT space especially. Let's talk more about that, because that's not a light endorsement to have them say, hey, and we haven't seen a lot of 3D stuff get kind of like vouched for by SuperRare. So explain that. That's a big one.
Yeah, totally. It's really, I mean, Chris is a SuperRare artist, and he was, he's been an artist on SuperRare for several years. I mean, as a studio, like obviously he did some one-on-ones himself as an artist, but when you're going to set out to do something as a studio, which is what we are, it needs to be this like super blown out like thing that, is A, like the utmost high quality, and B, it's done at scale because it kind of fits, us as a studio. And so, they've been our, named partners since the beginning, since day one. And we've been, working on this for a while. And it was funny because like GVC actually started organically as like a passion project for the studio, like the art development behind how this looks now. And, John, the CEO, and Charlie, they are good, and Jonathan, they're good IRL friends. And so at one point, John actually came up to Chris and he was like, dude, have you thought about like doing, a collection? And at that point we were like, yo, we've actually already kind of started working on one. And we didn't, he didn't know that at the time. And he, interestingly enough, kind of gave Chris that little like nudge to like, hey, like,
Right.
like go all in, like do this. So from a partner perspective, it's a perfect fit because like, our studio works on like high quality art. That's what we do. Their brand is like high quality, high end art. Obviously the one-on-one, sort of our pieces that, brought them, up, and then now they have their series, which is their collections and stuff. But we wanted to do high end art at scale. And so for us as like a partner with SuperRare, there's a lot we can do with the artist ecosystem. We're planning some stuff for Postman that we're super excited about. I can't share. Yeah, we can't do as detail.
Oh, you gotta,
like,
okay.
Maybe there's
gotta be something you can share.
Yeah, there is. We are working on like, our first like sort of IRL thing. That's where I'll leave it. Which is going to be super dope. We're very excited for it. But yeah, I mean, the SuperRare guys they're homies, and, we love them, and they've been, nothing but supporters since the beginning. And it's been really cool.
Again, we have not seen that like hard lean in to any collection. It really has been the one-on-one stuff. There have been some like drops, but nothing on like the PFP side on SuperRare. So I think this is a bold news for them. And I think it emphasizes their trust in you guys as artists and stewards of an IP, to see that endorsement. So my research before I bring people on this show is pretty extensive. And I've really have told, like, somebody asked me, and they're like, oh, so you're just going to keep bringing on the biggest accounts? And I was like, well, no. Like, look, I brought on Critters Quest. They had like 2,000 followers at the time and nobody knew about them. But I did, like, you have to do the research and look into who actually is putting in the work and who is performing at the top of their vertical. And I personally, and I'm sure there's people that can disagree with me, but I personally, after everything that I've seen in the ecosystem, I would endorse you guys as executing at the top of 3D, and looking to almost create a new category after where people have been burned in the past on, there not being any meat on the bone. We saw that with like Mechaverse or whatever it was. Like, those are 3D assets, but you could tell like they didn't put in the time. They just put it out and then they dipped. There's thought here on how this has cohesion and can have IP around it.
Yeah, it's all about the longevity. Like, that concept of really this is the start is actually not bullshit. It's completely real. Like, having an identity, and the reason that we went to such great lengths to create these characters at such high quality is because I truly believe that they do look amazing. Like, dude, I look at, whenever I'm like really late at night, I'm just looking at them, I'm like getting stoked. But anyway, the reason that we kind of went that route is so that there is a lot of diversity. There's a lot of personality. There's so many details within these pieces that people can kind of use them as their like identities if they so choose. And that's only kind of the beginning. Like, seeing those characters then come to life in Vibetown and in the greater like Vibeverse is really, really cool. And I think that it just really will reach a lot of people. And, Pudgy was sort of the huge playbook of that. Like, seeing them kind of expand their reach on Instagram and just really connecting with so many people, it's just been fantastic. And, doing that with GVC is absolutely the playbook and the goal.
Yeah, I saw G Money and Justin's honoraries. I blown away by that. You can tell that Justin already has used that in a few places, I believe. And I was like, oh wait, I know the guys who made that. And it's cool to see them like vibing with something that looks so much like them, but you can tell it's not a photo. It's not some bullshit, object creator that they went online and did. Like, it's serious, which I loved. Zane also in chat kind of putting like details matter. and that's where you guys
Zane
are
is
focused.
awesome, dude. Zane, absolute legend. Shout out to Zane. He just joined the team recently. An incredible addition. Really awesome work history. Helped build Claynosaurs and fantastic brand. Love that brand. Absolutely love everything that they're doing as well. The IP just crushing in a similar fashion. But yeah, big shout out to Zane for sure. Details are what it's all about. It's why we spent 3 years doing this. It's honestly the bear market happening when it did was the biggest blessing of all time, because it gave us all this time to just dive so deep. And, that's kind of where I think diamonds are, I guess not to be cliche, but they're kind of made, you know what I mean? Like,
that's kind of an interesting point, because people like, Chris and I are brothers. We talk about everything. We're very close. And like, as an artist, there's a certain level of like vulnerability that you have to like go to in order to create something meaningful. And so, it was a long process of working on this. And at a certain point, I remember I remember Chris kind of like coming to this place emotionally where he was like, I think I'm just like kind of ready for people to see it. There's this fear of like, how are people going to react? Like this anxiety over what you create that I don't necessarily feel because I'm not the artist, but like Chris does. And so like from an emotional level, like watching that sort of happen naturally and like him almost getting like to the place where he's ready to share it was really cool. And so that was like, I think probably the most proud moment that I had during the whole time as his brother is like seeing him arrive at that place and being like, all right, let's do it. Let's send it. And so, that I don't know. It was just a really kind of cool thing to see on
It's
the
a
first
jumping
level.
I appreciate
point.
that.
It's a jumping point.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
does take a
Yes.
lot of vulnerability, because this is something that you put in all this time and sweat into, and it's about to be judged by thousands of people who don't necessarily give a fuck about your feelings.
Right. Which,
Yeah.
that's great.
Right. That's, again, you guys are dropping so many like little like introspective bangers on the show so far about the artistic side and the building side that you don't necessarily always hear. I think there's a huge focus on like getting the product right and, making sure nothing breaks, which is true. Like we need that in the space, but there is an emotional side of this that not a lot of people are willing to admit to existing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like what Good Vibes Club represents, right? It's like that's what we want our community to represent too. It's really like, we all love NFTs, we all love art, we're all collectors to some capacity, and that's all true. But at the end of the day, we're also like brothers and dads and moms and sisters and all, and we're real people. And so, Good Vibes Club in terms of like the brand and the IP is really setting out to like allow people to connect with each other on a human level, and that's what I love about our community so far and the approach that we've taken in order to like let that
Right.
happen organically. But it's also the foundation for how the IP grows. Is we made our living in making short form content that people connect with. Mostly for other brands. This is now our own, but it's a perfect marriage of like, hey, these are our skills. This is what we do, but also this is who we are and what our community represents.
Amazing.
That was good.
Absolutely amazing. One thing I want to touch on real quick, minorly selfishly here, is we obviously have been talking a bunch. You guys did a bunch of honoraries. Is the 3 that you sent, is that the latest one for my honorary? Because I do want to bring that up and just show everybody how sick you guys are. And while you guys are confirming that, I'll just put into place that these guys are insane on like the actual like development side of things, where like if you can think it up, they can make it happen. And the detail side of things really shows as well. But
dude, and it's gonna be super sick. Not to cut you off, but like with abstract streaming platform, like one thing our community loves is like these honoraries because they're so custom and unique to everybody as like a human. And so it's going to be a good opportunity for us to do fun like events with the community for people to actually win the ability to watch Chris stream, make them their own honorary, which is something we definitely want to do in the future.
yeah, you have to be streaming on abstract.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I think
that's the plan. That's the plan. Cause like we've even some of the team avatars, like I'll like hop on a, like a Discord call and screen share and just start kind of hanging out. And then be like, dude, like, recently with Ronnie, we were talking, we're like, dude, what are you feeling? okay, let's, kind of assess like what's the vibe. And then we just kind of start riffing and going from there. And then we ended up with this like, okay, white fur coat with like vibes all over it. It's like super fun. And, it kind of came organically through the stream itself, because it's not like something that was pre-planned. And so, yeah, so being able to do that and interact with people, I think would be really fun. Something that, I really want to do and look forward to doing.
Love that. Yeah, it's going to be a big deal. And again, I keep coming back to like abstract just going to be the place to be for the next 6-8 months, I think. And you'll have so many eyeballs, I think, from the Web 2 world on what you're doing as well. Can't understate that. I look, I'm not trying to like, I guess I have bags in abstract because of Pudgy, but it's the place to be. And I'll shill people I like Luca all day long, because I think often the best builders don't get highlighted enough because it's a very extractive ecosystem that we work in. And again, I'm trying to highlight some of that. Let me pull up what I believe is the final one. We'll show this off here. Let me see. All right, so this is what you guys cranked out. I'll have to hide everybody.
We have one more actually, because we added the scarf in.
Oh, true. I take this back. This is not the final one. Hold on.
It was a fun iterative process, which kind of, it's cool that you showed that, because it's kind of a peek behind the curtain in a way. Because like we kind of started with,
yeah, I almost want
to
show the process of this, because I think that's cool too. Nobody really gets to see the like where the honorary, you always see the final piece, and these are obviously a one of one. But like, where did it start? Where did it go to? Let me pull those up.
I'm gonna send it again too, just in case.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why it's not in that chat. Let me see here. This is great. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot. We ended up on. This is so funny. All right. Great. This is perfect.
There was some background iteration. We wanted to get to, how do you pronounce it? Is it Crawley Town? Is that
Crawley Town? Yes.
Yeah, dude. We wanted to get the Crawley Town scarf going. Like I think like adding those personal touches to the honoraries is really what it's all about, because it basically there's like this design system that's like really restrictive that we created intentionally. But then when you're able to kind of like go out of that a little bit and then connect the dots with like, oh, I look at this image of like this character that doesn't actually look like me, but totally feels exactly like me.
Yeah,
is sort of where the magic is. And, I think that kind of comes through when you add like those little personal touches.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the one that I just showed. Let me see if it'll let me. Oh, I'm gonna have to figure out a different way to do this. Hold on. I have to share my entire window. I knew, I've been on a hot run here for a minute where I haven't run into technical issues, but this is the first day we're running into it. Okay.
We did. We iterated on different facial hair because we were like, dude.
So it was hard to figure out the best facial hair. So we went like no stash or yes stash. We even went to full stash.
Full beard.
Full beard, full stash. There was even a point like the first iteration against this was figuring out, okay, like I have a little like 5 o'clock shadow stuff going on, but then like getting the glasses right, because I have like a pair of glasses that I always wear that are black, and I was like, well, like it's missing a little bit of that punch. Like I've always used like FF8800 is the orange hex code that I have behind every PFP. And obviously it had to have 9 DCC, which is my favorite clothing brand of all time. I'm a shill for G Money. I'm not paid though. We got to fix that. And then we ended up on this so this is the first iteration that we started with. We ended up here, which is the black glasses, the blacked out hoodie, the chain, the Crawley Town scarf in the background, the fire emoji, which has been a staple since day one of crypto. It is the first thing I added to my Twitter day one when I entered the space. And it's a good nod to all the little things that I like and enjoy, and I think kind of make me. And And obviously, like, this is a 101. This is outside of the whole collection that they're putting out. But I really do want to highlight the fact that these guys are absolutely artists and so good at what they do. And I'm so appreciative. So appreciative.
Dude, so stoked you're stoked, man.
We
So
love
stoked
you,
because we
man.
had so much fun making it. And it's honestly like as you kind of like get to know each other and get to know like more about like what really like you love, you can kind of take that and then interject it into the art, and then hopefully that's where the magic happens. And I think that's how that works. But yeah,
Well,
it's been cool.
if it's any consolation, I think three of the four collections that have ever given me honoraries have run to over a 10 ETH floor. So, yeah,
That's
Let's
hopefully
go.
that's a nod to what the future holds, and also like how picky I am about who I work with. I think
Amazing.
the big one was Cryptodes, which I got an honorary in, and I think that ended up, like, the one-on-ones there went crazy, but Cryptodes at one point ran really crazy. And again, I think everybody who does honoraries well, I think there's a disconnect on why honoraries are important. And I'll give this from a collector investor standpoint, which is a lot of people look at honoraries and they go, well, that's just a marketing tactic, which sure, there's a marketing component to it. But to do honoraries well, it requires you to actually have a pipeline that allows for a good process of putting out a custom piece of art. And that shows that there was a lot of thought into the process of how the final pieces are generated. And I think that also requires, um, it really emphasizes that the team is being thoughtful to a degree, and you can tell who put in thought and who didn't put in the time and effort to get that correct. Which again, I think you guys have reflected very well here.
Oh man, I really appreciate that, dude. It means a lot coming from you, and we're stoked to make you one. Like we were
Yeah, I
fired
will
up
say
about it.
Justin has the best one in my opinion, especially like because I'm such good
Dude,
friends
You
with
think,
him.
dude? G Money's is sick too, though, man. Like
Jesus,
it's
but
hard to pick. It's hard to pick. Justin's
is
is
a
sick.
vibe though,
Justin's is
yeah,
bro,
sick.
and it's a
when you
vibe.
know the
Yeah,
background and the photos that, I mean, he was
Yeah.
sending, especially I was like laughing my ass off because I've known him so well. I mean, I've been to his house. We played Fortnite together like every night for like 6 months straight. Like, we're boys. And
I
I was
love
just like,
it.
oh my God, this is so Justin. It's so good.
Dude, it's so good.
after he sent it to him, his wife was like, "Oh my god, that is so you,"
Yeah.
which was really cool to have him say.
It's like
Yeah.
the ultimate
that.
compliment
Yeah.
because like being able to like have people see themselves in the art, dude, it's like all I want for like everyone. Like I want people to feel like that because that's just maximum stoke, Like, dude, that's what's up.
But the collection also, like, there were ones when I was going through the collection, and I think this animation here is a great one to show, which is let me pull this up. This one, which I was like, you know what,
Rainbow glass.
I would rock this. Like, this is cool. And I vibe with multiple ones in here where I'm like, all right, that is, like, I see myself in that. And I think being able to like pull that out of the general collection as well is important. Because I think there's times where I've minted stuff and I've been like, all right, this will never, ever, ever touch my PFP ever. And I want it to. I minted the collection with the like intention of, okay, this be cool to like have in my wallet or put up in like one of the virtual galleries or put it as a PFP for a while. But like, nah, I just don't. There's no connection, and it hurts.
Dude, that connection is super
Dude,
important. Yeah, go for it, Ty.
No, I was going to say that the rainbow glass is actually one of the more rare subs. It's one of a couple rare subsets. We haven't officially announced all of the rare subsets yet, but that Shaka animation that you were playing earlier, there's a couple 101 nugs.
I saw
in
the
there
Skelly,
too.
yeah. I saw that. I was like, there's gonna be ones of one of ones within the collection, right? Like some ones that like you're just like,
there's
what the
6
fuck?
one of ones that I love. One of them is actually pretty dope. So like not only are they like cool art pieces, but we wanted to kind of really think about more of like the narrative. And so one of ones is called Bad Vibes Guy, and there's only one Bad Vibes Guy in the whole collection, and he's made of a storm cloud. And he actually has like a counter character that's like his like yin and yang, which I won't divulge what that is yet because I don't want to give away too much. But there's like this narrative portion to it where it's like, dude, if we can have this dope Stormcloud looking character, with the glowing eyes, and he's cool, and have that sort of be a piece of the world and sort of drive narrative. Like we've already kind of seen a little bit from like some of the clips we've shared with like the Vibe foot hitting the Shaka on the Harley. I think that those narrative components are really important as well as like the art execution side of things.
Yeah. I think Gary Vee's gotten it right on approaching like IP of there's a narrative around what he's trying to achieve with it. He's been quiet, and I always like get a little nervous bringing his name up because I think there is people fall on one side of the spectrum with him, but I think he's gotten it right. And you got to give him time because it's not easy to pull off IP well, especially when you're not trying to run like the hype train, or if you're not a team of, I think Pudgy's like it's over 100 people now. I mean, it's a significant operation. I think that you guys are also thinking about like, okay, what's the story between Bad Vibes and another character here that runs into an animation, or I even like what's a viral reel. I fall back to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cool Man Coffee Dan, Danny Casal, New York based guy, does animations. I mean, he has reels that do tens of millions of views, and that adds value to the underlying IP. That's totally possible here when you have those like characters that can tell a story.
100%, 100%. I feel like that's the meat and potatoes in some senses, to kind of just beginning to tell the story. Like, why is any IP great? It's because of the narrative behind it. Like, why is Mickey Mouse like the most famous IP of all time? It's because of those like thousands of years, or not thousands of hours of like animation and storytelling and sort of just, connecting with like
Yeah,
kids
you know
watching stuff,
who it's crazy because
Yeah.
you know who Mickey Mouse is. Like
Right.
if you went and got a beer with him, what the experience would be like. Like
Yeah.
maybe beer is the wrong example, but like you know.
Sounds
Yeah.
really tight, dude. I want to go get a beer with Mickey, dude. That'd be
I actually
sick.
that
I want
would
a beer with Mickey, dude.
yeah, that would actually that would be funny.
Yeah, it would be.
Speaking of beers, dude, when we were making Justin's honorary, I saw from the photo, I was like, is
Oh
that
my!
Nika?
I
And like
don't
I
know
knew
how
the
you
back.
pulled that out. I
Yeah, that
actually
was
was like,
crazy.
I was like, this is outrageous. How did he know from the beer type where in the world he was? Not the docks where Justin
Dude,
travels to, but
yeah, I just pegged his vibe. I was like, this has to be Nika. And I have Nika beers in my fridge, and we actually took the beer that he was holding and actually made a custom like Good Vibes Club logo out of the beer logo and then put it on his shirt
yeah,
too.
it's.
a little
I'll find it again. It's such a. You guys crush it here. Like, if it lets me scroll down, or it won't because of course I brought this. Oh wait, no, there it is. Technical difficulties all day long on the
Dude, it's all
show.
good.
It's brutal. It's
Dude,
brutal. Yeah.
At least I didn't shoot out the join
Yeah,
link to
it's gonna
Discord.
happen at some point. Somebody's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Such a cool like this. I won't dox the actual photo that this is based off of and the other photos, but they did such a good job knowing the process behind this and the inspiration. So
If you
absolutely.
zoom in all the way onto that little logo, I think it says Vibe Town. Like, go down
Oh
real
my
quick.
god, yeah,
Yeah, keep
that's
going, keep
sick.
going. Yeah,
I
dude.
don't I
It's
can't
like
go
those little
anymore.
things, Okay, no worries, dude. It's like the little stuff, Like that's actually, so that logo was like from a beer can that he had when he was holding it in a hammock, but we wanted to recreate it like to fit with the theme and the lore. And so that's kind of how that went about.
Yeah, and like even noting like people think that a shirt on a person is just a solid white object. But you guys went down to like the fiber stitching and knitting on the shirt. Like there's real thought and real effort put behind the material choices as well as the modeling. That has to be noted. And also like you guys were talking about the difficulties of like clay modeling, I guess is the right terminology here.
Mm-hmm.
Getting like hair is hard to do really well. But you guys have found a way to capture that correctly as well.
Yeah, and when you're kind of doing like stylization in terms of like in 3D, because like obviously the mustache hairs are not hair. It's like, imagine like Play-Doh. So there's like a level of, artist sort of decision making that has to happen. And so I think that sometimes it can require a little bit more thought of like, how do I take this complex thing, like 1,000 million hair follicles, and simplify them into an image that feels iconic or, legible and relatable. And so the ability to kind of like do that within the system is kind of what I think makes the honorary so fun. And it's what makes like the art style so fun. It's this balance of like legibility, but like playfulness and, stylization. So like the hairs, if they were like, I guess, realistic, they wouldn't be legible at PFP size. And one of the things that I guess I haven't actually talked too much about yet is that we really feel like the silhouette is important and the functionality is important. So we wanted these PFPs to like look awesome when you zoom in to the detail, like to the skin or, little scratches on metal. But also if you shrink them down like super tiny, we want you to be able to see that there's a lot of variation in the silhouettes of characters. And there's a lot of legibility with, the glasses or, like a little mustache or something, because that's really important. And that's one of the things that is difficult in 3D historically, because light has to be treated in such a way where it's bright enough to have that sort of like legibility. That's why I think a lot of the really good PFPs are 2D, because you don't have that problem. And it is a difficult one to kind of tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody who's worked in like a rendering software knows that is like the lighting setup and the reflection and shadows are a pain in the butt. And I'm putting that lightly as somebody who has amateurly tried to do that. Well, you guys have Mint coming up here. Obviously, you're on Abstract, as we've noted. SuperRare is backing you. Are we missing anything? Other details? I know I've pried. Is there any other alpha that's worth slipping in the show here around what's to come?
So I mentioned that we're, in the process of planning our like first like big IRL thing. So that's to come. You could probably take a look at SuperRare's Instagram or sorry, Twitter to see a little bit of like what that might be. But that's, I think, the most I am allowed to say about it right now. But yeah, Mint's coming up. I'd love to be able to give more alpha. Mint's coming up. We haven't announced a date yet. Collection size is 6969 for the culture. And right now we're stoked to vibe out.
Amazing. Good vibes, vibing out, and a bright future ahead. I love it. Guys, I'm excited. I am genuinely excited for this. Nothing but love. You guys are awesome. If you guys aren't already and if you're watching this or listening, make sure you're following Chris and Ty on X. And if you haven't, go check out Good Vibes Club. It's vibes with 3 S's on X as well. Mint's coming up, Abstract, streaming, good vibes. I think that's the way to.
Dude, let's go.
It's been awesome, man. Thank you for having us on. It's been a really, really fun time.
Of course. And if there's anything you guys need, you know where to reach me.
Awesome, dude.
100%, man. Thank you again.
Thank you guys. Everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Make sure you go check them out. And don't miss Mint.
Let's go.